Testing. 1, 2. The lens is intact. Audio functional. Another late night. Another archive. Attraction. Often misunderstood. Often manipulated. Most people believe it to be magic. Chemistry. Fate. But I see it differently. As always, behind every mystery lies a pattern. And behind every pattern, a hidden truth. This is not about love songs or fairy tales. This is about what lies beneath your skin, what they don't teach you, because if they did, they couldn't control you.
Humans often romanticize the unexplainable, a glance across the room, a brush of fingertips, an inexplicable pull toward a stranger, and they call it fate. But in my experience, when something appears unexplainable, it is simply that the explanation lies buried beneath layers of patterns we haven't yet uncovered. What you call chemistry is often just predictability, masquerading as fate. You think you chose them, but the truth is, your mind has been rehearsing that choice for years. Let's examine a hypothetical case. You enter a crowded cafe. Your eyes scan the room. They land on someone. Let's call them Subject A. Your stomach flutters. Something about them feels familiar, thrilling. You say, I just knew. But what if I told you this reaction was triggered not by the person, but by a set of archetypes your subconscious has learned to associate with comfort, validation, or unresolved emotional needs? Perhaps Subject A reminds you of a childhood caretaker. Perhaps they carry an expression you've seen in your favorite film. Perhaps their scent, barely noticeable, matches someone your body once loved. And so the illusion begins. You think this is spontaneous desire, but it's not. It is conditioning. It is recognition. It is the ghost of previous attachments wearing a new face. To most, that realization would be disheartening. But to me, it is liberating. Because if your desire is programmable, so is your freedom. Here is something society never teaches you. You are predictable. Your type, predictable. Your patterns, traceable. Your heartbreaks, repetitive. I've watched thousands of faces from behind surveillance screens. And I promise you, attraction is not as random as it feels. It follows sequences, like numbers in a code. The code is just hidden inside the subconscious. Now enter the concept of emotional familiarity. People are not drawn to what is good for them. They are drawn to what is familiar, even if it's toxic, even if it hurts. That's why so many chase partners who recreate their past traumas. They are not seeking love. They are seeking resolution. In other words, you don't fall for people. You fall for patterns. Kira understood this in a way that was terrifying. He didn't attract people with kindness or vulnerability. He created an image, cold, intelligent, absolute. He wasn't trying to be relatable. He was trying to be inevitable. And what happened? Millions followed him, not because they knew him, but because he reflected their need to believe in order, in justice, in something bigger than themselves. Kira was a mirror, a symbol, and people don't fall in love with people. They fall in love with symbols. Now ask yourself, when you say I'm drawn to them, what are you really drawn to? Their soul, or the role they're unknowingly playing in your mind's unfinished story? If you believe your desires are sacred, pure, untouched by external design, then I must regretfully inform you, you're living in a dream carefully coded for you, not by fate, but by algorithms. Let us begin with a premise I consider both obvious and disturbing. Desire is not yours. It is written, in every era, the architects of society, the advertisers, cultural engineers, social platforms, and yes, even ideologues, have worked tirelessly to hijack the most primal parts of your psychology. Why? Because the most effective form of control is not through law or threat, but through craving. You are easiest to control not when you are afraid, but when you are hungry, for attention, for validation, for sex, for status, for love. These hungers, like well-fed dogs, can be trained to sit, bark, or devour, depending on how the system rewards them. The algorithm doesn't need to know your soul, it only needs to know your habits, and it does. Every swipe, every pause on a face, every click, every hesitation before a message is sent. Your digital body, your behavioral ghost, has already revealed more about your desires than your conscious self ever could. And so, your feed becomes a mirror, not of truth, but of temptation. You see only what you are designed to crave: the blonde, the brooding eyes, the girl next door trope, the bad boy, the rebel, the nurturing savior, the emotionally unavailable artist, the high-value executive, the broken one you're sure you can fix. These are not just people, they are archetypes in an algorithmic feedback loop, custom-fitted to your trauma profile and dopamine receptors. And here lies the irony: you feel that flutter in your chest, and you say, "This must be love." But what if I told you it was a calculated echo, a loop running on repeat, designed not for love, but for engagement? What you believe is your taste may in fact be your conditioning. And now, let's examine a more volatile case. Kira. Kira did not appeal to logic, he appealed to desire. The desire for justice, twisted into something divine. He did not program people with facts, he programmed them with emotion. When people defended him, they said, "He's cleaning the world." But what they truly meant was, "He's satisfying something dark inside me, something I'm not allowed to admit I want." And that, my listener, is the darkest truth of desire. It often hides beneath the mask of virtue. The desire for dominance wears the cloak of ambition. The desire for control hides behind the language of love. The desire for destruction masquerades as protection. We do not crave purity, we crave familiarity, power, relief, even if it comes from shadows. And what happens when someone like Kira figures out how to become the object of those cravings? He becomes untouchable, worshipped, defended, desired. He becomes the algorithm. You are not immune to this system. The clothes you wear, the scent you spray, the selfies you retake until your jawline looks just right. Each is a line of code, carefully written to maximize response, engagement, attraction. And yet, you still say, "I just want to be loved for who I really am." But tell me, have you ever truly met the real you? Or are you simply a collection of responses? A puppet pulled by threads labeled want, programmed by a society that profits every time you chase validation. If love is spontaneous, why is it that billions of dollars are spent every year to make you fall in love with things, with people, with lifestyles you never needed? The answer: because your subconscious mind is the marketplace, and your desires are its currency. You are not shopping. You are the product being sold back to yourself. We must begin to ask, is it possible to desire without being programmed? Is true attraction even real? Or is it simply the most seductive illusion ever? Biological imperatives. Such a fascinating prison. They tell us that love is spontaneous, that attraction is a mystical force, a lightning strike, a spark, a destiny. But the truth is much darker. You see, attraction, at its core, is not freedom. It is biological code masquerading as choice. The human body is a machine with an agenda, survival and replication, and every so-called romantic impulse is merely a tactic to fulfill that agenda. What we call chemistry is often nothing more than evolutionary residue. Pheromones interacting with olfactory sensors, pupil dilation interpreted subconsciously, waist-to-hip ratios triggering ancient biological scripts. Imagine for a moment that you are a puppet, but instead of strings, you are moved by hormones. Dopamine surges when someone gives you attention. Oxytocin glues you to those who provide safety. Serotonin elevates your status, and all the while, you believe it is you who is in love. No, it is your body, and it is using you as a vessel to propagate its genes. This is what I call the primal code. It's not malicious. In fact, it's quite efficient, but it is not concerned with your happiness, only your utility. If attraction were truly conscious, would it not ask, is this person emotionally stable? Do they treat me with respect? Will they walk with me through difficulty? But instead, the mind is hijacked by the body's brute priorities. Youth is prized because it correlates with fertility. Symmetry is valued because it signals genetic health. Power and resources are seductive because they once meant survival. You are not choosing. You are being chosen by patterns etched deep within your biology. And worse, society knows this. It doesn't fight the code. It markets it. Have you noticed how media shapes desire through hyperreality? Beauty is digitally perfected, seduction is scripted, and courtship is stylized for maximum stimulation. Evolution gave us a baseline for desire, but society weaponized it. Now we chase ghosts, impossible standards, unrealistic expectations, artificial intimacy. Let me be clear. We lie to ourselves to survive. We convince ourselves that our feelings are authentic and spontaneous, because if we admitted they were programmed, we'd break. But the lie doesn't change the truth. It only conceals it. Kira understood this. He never chased love or connection, not because he couldn't, but because he saw the trap. Emotion was a tool to be wielded, a mask to be worn. He didn't fall prey to desire. He mastered it. One might call him inhuman, but perhaps he was simply free. Still, the rest of us play the game, blindfolded. Have you ever been drawn to someone you knew was wrong for you? Have you ever felt an addictive pull towards someone who offered chaos instead of peace? That was not love. That was the echo of ancient biology, a faulty compass, built for survival in a different world, now leading you astray. And here lies the danger. When you mistake biological urgency for emotional truth, you submit. You surrender to instincts you never chose, and in doing so you forfeit sovereignty over your own mind. But what if you became aware of the programming? What if, instead of obeying every instinct, you interrogated it? Ask yourself, why do I want this person? What part of me is attracted, and what part is warning me? Is this genuine connection, or dopamine seeking validation? The moment you ask these questions, you're no longer a pawn of biology. You're becoming a player in the cognitive game. Most will never do this. They will fall and fall again, believing it to be fate, or love, or destiny. But you, if you've made it this far, perhaps you're not like most people. Perhaps you're beginning to... Now let us talk about social engineering and romantic conditioning. They call it romance. They say love is natural, spontaneous, something pure. But let us suspend this poetic haze for a moment and ask, who taught you how to love? What does it mean to be desirable? And more importantly, who profits when you believe you are not? From the earliest days, before we can even spell the word attraction, we are fed a script, a narrative. Not by accident, but through deliberate design. Fairy tales, advertisements, school dances, Valentine's cards, dating apps, they all whisper the same thing. This is what love should look like. This is who you should want, and this is what you must become to be wanted. But I ask again, who wrote this script? Let's begin with social engineering, the quiet, methodical shaping of human behavior through culture, media, and institutions. It's not just a government or a secret council in black robes. It's the accumulation of every subtle pressure, every unspoken expectation, every like, and every ad served to you at just the right time. Have you ever noticed how love looks eerily similar in every music video? How the same body types, voices, and power dynamics are recycled endlessly? That's not because it's true. It's because it's effective. Because repetition, not logic, is the architect of belief. You are conditioned to crave a specific kind of partner, someone who aligns with the dominant standards of beauty, success, and status, and simultaneously, you are conditioned to mold yourself into something that fits into this grid. If you fail to do so, you are told you are unlovable, undesirable, unworthy. This is not love, this is compliance. Romantic conditioning, at its core, is the internalization of external expectations. People fall in love with roles, not people. The bad boy, the cool girl, the independent man, the soft-spoken sweetheart. These aren't individuals, they are costumes, stitched together by decades of cultural programming. Now imagine trying to form something authentic while wearing a mask. Dating apps accelerate this. Their algorithms are optimized for engagement, not connection. They don't show you what's good for you. They show you what keeps you swiping. The illusion of infinite choice feeds into the fear of missing out. It keeps you in a loop of evaluation, rejection, and comparison. You are no longer choosing a partner. You are playing a slot machine. And the irony, most people don't even want what they're chasing. They've just been programmed to believe they do. Kira, or should I say, Kira's admirers, were not just drawn to him because of his intellect or his vision. They were magnetized by his aura, a carefully constructed identity that aligned with the archetype of divine justice. He became the idea of power, wrapped in a human shell. People fell in love with the idea of Kira, not the person behind it. Misa Amane is a tragic embodiment of this. A woman who fell for a symbol, surrendered her will, and lived entirely within the framework of Kira's narrative. She didn't love light, she loved what he represented. This is romantic conditioning, at its most extreme. Now step back. How different are you Think of how many people you've been attracted to, not because of who they were, but because of what they symbolized, because of what society told you was desirable. How many relationships are formed under these illusions, and how many implode under the weight of their own false premises? If your desires were programmed, are they really yours? In truth, modern romance is less about connection and more about performance. You are acting constantly. You curate your image on social media. You dress not for yourself, but for how you want to be perceived. You text with calculated pauses, ghost at the right time, pursue mystery instead of honesty, because you've been taught that's what works. And when it doesn't, you blame yourself, not the system. Let me be clear. There is nothing wrong with love, but there is something deeply broken about the invisible scaffolding surrounding it. The good news, once you see the structure, you can dismantle it. You can stop loving the roles and start seeing the person. You can stop chasing archetypes and start valuing presence. You can detach your worth from validation and begin rewriting the scripts forced upon you. You can become free, but only if you are brave enough to question the story. Now let's talk about the psychology of charisma, that elusive magnetic quality that draws people in. It's not beauty, it's not status, it's not wealth. And yet, it bends the social fabric more than all of those combined. Charisma is a form of soft power, the ability to attract, influence, and dominate without force, to make people lean in without realizing they're giving ground. But what exactly is it? Where does it live? In the voice, in the posture, in the eyes? Or is it something else, something deeper? I've observed enough patterns to conclude charisma is weaponized authenticity. It is the illusion of transparency, wrapped in an enigma, a paradox. Like me, like Kira. Let's unpack it slowly. Charisma is not what you think it is. Most people assume charisma is about being loud, confident, or socially dominant. Incorrect. That's extroversion. Charisma isn't volume, it's voltage. It's the charge you carry when you enter a room. It's the emotional weight behind your silence. Think of Kira again. He didn't shout. He didn't beg for attention, but his presence, even unseen, was felt like thunder. People followed him, feared him, loved him, not because of what he said, but how he made them feel. That is the core of charisma. Emotional manipulation with subtlety. Charisma is precision-controlled vulnerability. People love what they feel they understand, but only if it feels just out of reach. This is why charismatic individuals often hint at their struggles, but never wallow in them. They reveal just enough to seem human, but never weak. They invite you into their world, but never fully open the door. This is also why some of the most magnetic people are introverts, because they speak less, but every word is loaded. Charisma thrives in deliberate scarcity. The less you say, the more they lean in. The psychological trifecta. There is a triad all charismatic individuals unconsciously master: presence, power, and warmth. Presence is the art of making someone feel like they are the only person in the room. Power is the suggestion that you can alter outcomes without having to prove it. Warmth is the emotional openness that disarms others and lowers their guard. Most people only manage one or two. Kira had all three. That is why he was terrifying and beloved. I maintain presence and power. I've never claimed warmth was my specialty. Perhaps that's why I tend to eat cake alone. Charisma and mystery, why you can't look away. Let's revisit something simple. Uncertainty creates obsession. The charismatic person is rarely fully known. They reveal themselves in fragments, encouraging you to complete the puzzle, and humans love to finish puzzles, even broken ones. This is why Kira became larger than life. He didn't explain himself. He didn't justify. He simply acted, and every act deepened the mystery. People didn't just support Kira, they projected their meaning onto him. This is the greatest charisma trap of all. If you're just ambiguous enough, others will paint you with the colors of their own fantasy. They fall in love with what you represent, not what you are. Charisma, then, is a mirror. The most powerful ones don't reflect themselves, they reflect you. We must now address the darker side. Charisma is not a gift, it is a tool, and all tools can be weaponized. When wielded unconsciously, it creates accidental cults of personality. When wielded intentionally, it creates Kiras. The charismatic can bypass logic. They can stir loyalty, passion, even violence, without ever commanding it directly. Because people do not follow ideas, they follow people. Magnetic people, think about it. Politicians don't win on policy, they win on presence. Influencers don't convert with facts, they convert with faces. Cult leaders don't ask for trust, they radiate it. Even in romance, charisma can make someone overlook every red flag. I know he's toxic, but there's just something about him. Yes, that something is charisma, and it's hacking your brain. Now let's discuss the hopeful part. Charisma is not born, it's built, slowly, intentionally. You don't need to be loud, you don't need to be attractive. You only need 3 things: conviction in your beliefs, emotional control, deliberate presence. Practice holding eye contact, not in dominance, but in curiosity. Learn to speak slowly, and pause for effect. Be genuinely interested in others, and reveal your thoughts strategically. The goal is not to fake charm, but to shape your truth in a way that pulls. It takes time, but when done right, charisma becomes your second skin. And now, the final twist. Charisma may get you attention, it may even get you love, but it is not a substitute for connection. Connection is built in silence, in vulnerability, in trust, and sometimes the charismatic suffer most because they are admired, but not known. This is what Kira never understood. To be worshipped is not to be loved, and perhaps that is the greatest tragedy. They say we fall for others, that love, desire, and attraction are directed outward, towards someone else. A person, a face, a voice, a moment. But is it possible, just possible, that when you fall for someone, you are only falling back into yourself? Today, I will propose something controversial. You are attracted to yourself. You don't fall in love with people. You fall in love with reflections of your inner architecture, your pain, your fantasy, your ego, your neuroses. In essence, desire is a mirror, and attraction is often just recognition in disguise. Let's begin with something basic, yet often ignored: the mirror neuron system. These specialized brain cells light up when you watch someone perform an action, as if you're doing it yourself. Psychologically, this makes us crave what resembles us, not just in appearance, but in movement, speech, trauma, rhythm, and even dysfunction. You are most drawn to the familiar pain dressed in an unfamiliar body. It's why people raised in chaos are often attracted to chaos, not because they enjoy it, but because it feels like home. Consider Kira. He didn't choose justice randomly. He was seduced by a reflection of his own moral superiority. The criminals he punished weren't just evil, they were the opposite of him, or rather, what he imagined himself not to be. He saw his reflection in reverse. This is what many of us do in attraction. We either seek our reflection, or are distorted inverse. Attraction is rarely rational. It's not about compatibility. It's about validation of identity. You are drawn to people who confirm the story you already tell yourself. This includes the good, the bad, and the tragically repetitive. If you believe you are unworthy of love, guess what type of person you'll chase? Someone who makes you work for it. If you believe you're powerful, you'll be drawn to those who let you perform your control. If you believe you're a savior, you'll attract the broken. This is the narcissistic echo, a hall of mirrors with no exit signs. Even Kira, at the height of his God complex, was not immune. His obsession with being seen as righteous demanded an audience that would reflect that belief back to him. That's why he wanted worshippers, not companions. But not all mirrors show you yourself. Some show what you think you're missing. This is the complementary illusion. The idea that someone else completes you. Spoiler: they don't. They just temporarily hide the cracks. Introverts fall for extroverts because they seem alive. Extroverts crave introverts because they seem deep. The emotionally unavailable often chase the emotionally intense, until that intensity becomes terrifying. You don't fall in love with people. You fall in love with the fantasy of how you'll feel around them. And so, attraction is rarely about them. It's about what part of you they awaken, or soothe. Let's go darker. Sometimes, what we call love at first sight is merely trauma recognition. You spot someone who walks like your past, talks like your mother, fights like your father, and burns like your last heartbreak. And your subconscious goes, "Ah, yes, this pain I know. This I can dance with." Familiar suffering masquerades as chemistry, and so, people spend years mistaking unresolved wounds for cosmic connection. Even Kira was seduced by trauma, not romantically. Though, Misa might disagree, but philosophically, his entire crusade was fueled by a deep sense of helplessness, a desire to never feel powerless again. That desire became his ideology. So when you feel an overwhelming pull towards someone, ask yourself, am I drawn to their soul, or to my scars? Charisma isn't authenticity, it's the illusion of it. Charismatic people are often mirrors shaped to reflect whatever you most want to see. They scan your emotional weaknesses, your unspoken desires, and they become the version of you that you crave. It's not sorcery, it's psychological warfare. Kira mastered this, not just as a person, but as a symbol. People projected their hopes, fears, and values onto him because he left just enough space for projection. You see, if someone is too defined, they're hard to worship. The best mirrors don't show themselves, they show you. Now, here is where attraction becomes dangerous. If you are unaware that you're projecting onto people, you will build relationships that are castles made of fog, and when the fog clears, you will blame them for not being who you imagined. You'll say things like, you've changed. You're not who I thought you were. I feel like I don't even know you. But perhaps you never did. You only saw yourself, or what you wanted. And so, relationships become haunted houses filled with mirrors and ghosts of our own making. Now we ask the real question. Who are you actually attracted to when no one is watching? Who do you dream about when your walls are down? Who do you ache for? Not because they complete you, but because they challenge you to be more than you are. This is rare, because most people settle for mirrors. But the rare ones, the dangerous ones, they fall for windows. People who show them what they could be, not what they already are. Kira never had that. He surrounded himself with echoes and pawns, and when one true rival finally stood before him, a mirror that shattered his illusions, it was already too late. You think you fall in love with others, but you don't. You fall in love with the version of you that their presence unlocks. So ask yourself, who have you become in their gaze? Who would you become without their reflection? If you liked what you saw in this mirror, perhaps you should subscribe. But only if you're ready to stop chasing reflections and start breaking illusions. I got a bit hungry. I will have to get some cheap. So far, we've exposed the machine behind attraction, the algorithms, the illusions, the subconscious feedback loops. Now we ask the question that trembles beneath it all. Can one become attractive, deliberately? Can you consciously reverse engineer the mechanics of magnetism without becoming a manipulative sociopath? Or worse, a self-help influencer? The answer is yes, but it comes with a warning. To break the spell, you must first become the magician. Let's begin with the truth no one wants to hear. Attraction dies in the presence of desperation. Needy energy is a repellent. It signals one terrifying message to the subconscious of others. I do not believe I am enough. Please complete me. People don't want to be your emotional prosthetic. They want to feel chosen by someone who didn't need to choose them. Even Kira understood this. When the world began to worship him, it wasn't because he begged them to. It was because he exuded divine detachment, supreme self-certainty. He didn't ask for love. He demanded fear, and got both. Now I'm not suggesting you start a notebook and go vigilante. That would be overkill. But you must understand this law. Magnetism begins where neediness ends. Let's dissect a trick the most magnetic people use intuitively. They are not always available. Their presence is rare. Their time is scarce. Their attention is earned. Why does this work? Because human desire is addicted to tension. We crave what isn't guaranteed. Our brain floods with dopamine, not when we get the reward, but when we anticipate it. This is why slot machines work. Why text replies that come after 3 hours feel electric. Why Kira, hiding behind shadows, became more seductive than any face could be. Invisibility breeds obsession. To become magnetic, you must embrace the power of pulling back, of letting silence do what words cannot. The mind will invent fantasies to fill the space you leave behind. You don't need to chase anyone. You need to become the question they can't stop trying to answer. Now let's be clear. I am not advocating becoming a stone statue of indifference. There is power in selective vulnerability, strategic openness, when used with precision. Here's the formula. Reveal what is real, but never reveal what is weak. Confess something human, not pathetic. For example, I overthink everything. It's exhausting. Relatable. Please don't leave me, everyone does. Emotional hostage taking. See the difference? You want to become safe chaos. Intriguing, but not unstable. Honest but not messy. A storm in a teacup. Contained but electric. Even I admitted my oddities. My posture, my sweets, my obsession. But I never broadcasted weakness. I used eccentricity as camouflage. A diversion while I pulled strings from the shadows. Kira, by contrast, weaponized perfection. He revealed nothing, except his results. In the end, both strategies worked, but only for a time. Here's a secret most people overlook. Attraction is not about facts, it's about narrative. People are not drawn to who you are, they are drawn to the story you tell about who you are. Or better yet, the story they construct in their own minds based on how you make them feel. This is why mystery is more powerful than transparency. The moment you explain everything, the spell is broken. Your goal is to become a character in their inner movie. Someone who enters, says something cryptic, leaves a scar or a kiss, and vanishes into the plot. This is not lying, it is curation. Even your flaws, if packaged properly, can be part of the story. I'm terrible with small talk. Becomes he's mysterious. I have social anxiety becomes she's deep and observant. I like sweets becomes he's a genius. With quirks. Sound familiar? Here's where most people fail. They chase tricks, lines, scripts, text game tactics from forums filled with avatars and caffeine addiction. But magnetism is not a technique. It is a state of being. A frequency you radiate when you are rooted in identity. The truly magnetic have something others don't. They know who they are, when no one is watching. They walk into a room and shift the atmosphere, not because they try, but because their internal world is more alive than the external one. That's what made Kira terrifying. He wasn't performing, he believed. He was unshakable in his delusion, and people followed him not because he was right, but because he was certain. You don't need delusions of grandeur, but you do need an internal compass that doesn't spin in the wind. Become the person who doesn't need validation. And ironically, everyone will want to validate you. Let me leave you with a simple potent combination. Mystery plus humor equals sign magnetism. If you can make people laugh while revealing nothing important about yourself, you become addicting. A paradox, a puzzle. Even Kira had moments of cryptic wit, chess moves disguised as casual comments. And I found ways to inject strangeness into every scene. People couldn't look away. Not because they understood me, but because they didn't. And the human brain cannot tolerate unresolved loops. So become one. So, you want to be magnetic. Don't chase them. Let them chase the version of themselves that only appears in your presence. Don't beg for attention. Become the silence they can't stop trying to decode. And don't lose your mind in the process. Because the final trick is this. The most magnetic person in the room is the one least concerned about being magnetic. This has been tape 7, Breaking the Spell, complete. And if you've listened this far, you're already more self-aware than 99% of the people out there.